well-being for all at all ages. The outcomes of SDG 1 also drive through SDG 3. So good health and well-being have been made great progress over the several years, leading to causes of death to decrease. It takes into account the widening economic and social inequalities. So the reality with health is that for you to have access to better opportunities, have access to health care, and also the social inequalities are there because of inadequacies within resource giving of resources in the community. So rapid urbanization and threat to climate and the environment and continued burden of HIV and other infections, disease and challenges such as non-communicable diseases. So in the previous lesson, we were looking at how environmental challenges are causing a lot of illnesses. So, and how many they are from underprivileged situations, they are going to experience many of these environmental challenges or environment illnesses that come because of environmental challenges. So this SDG looks at promoting the health of individuals, addressing the primary causes of illnesses amongst particularly underdeveloped countries. So you'd find that in a lot of underdeveloped countries, HIV is very high. You're looking at other non-communicable diseases. You're looking at effects of such as cholera. You're looking at malaria. So these diseases generally, they can be prevented. So this goal is sort of giving off the projection of saying we need to address the environmental challenges, the economic and social inequalities that cause underprivileged societies to have more prevalences to illnesses. And this also includes providing capacity for hospitals. So you'd find a lot of aid in terms of mankwala, resources used in the hospital. There's a lot of funding in health. So it is there because the international community understands good underdeveloped countries are even dramas to sort of provide funding in health services. And number 4 is ensure inclusive and equitable quality education and promoting lifelong learning opportunities for all. So goal number 4 is quality education. So education is some kind of education, but it has to be quality education. So it's providing necessary knowledge and necessary skills. So within the education discipline, si mangokhala kumangowapatsa information and pamene akuphunzira, but rather giving them information that they are going to use. So it's this goal number 4 is focusing on transformative education. For example, you are graduating, let's say by employment pool, ntchito sizikupezeka, right? Mukhoza inu yokungogwiza ntende seguleni NGO. So it means your education has transformed you to think outside of just working for someone. Okay, so the focus of this goal is to give necessary information, necessary knowledge to impart individuals with necessary skills outside of higher education. It's also focusing on providing education that can be used outside of the classroom. So, for example, most of the times I'm standard 4. Curriculum is it counted by standard 5? Is it counted by at least standard 5 in that is standard 5? They are able to know how to participate. They know how to read and write. They know how to maybe calculate for example, your loan, right? They know how to understand various information that is provided in terms of agriculture, financial services, and a lot of other services. So this goal also ensures that all girls and boys complete free primary and secondary schooling by 2030. So the enrollment, you'd find that it's increasing, particularly in underdeveloped countries. Kulima project ambida school feeding because they found out that in a lot of underdeveloped countries, anasa mapito school fota makoda ininja, sagamba mwana koda ininja. So the school feeding program allows for some sort of compensation into going to school, and also there's a lot of projects that are assisting school resources for underprivileged people. So the education is not only for the girls and boys, but also equitable and accessible vocational training. So while higher education is some sort of a long-standing goal for a lot of underdeveloped countries, vocational training should be something that we're using now. This is why the government is promoting training ya ntchito zamanja, because a lot of people can't really access higher education, and also because kumalayi kunoko in the higher education iyapopo kuma ntchito zamanja zimene zimakhala zikumpangisa munthu kuti azikhale ndrama, and also eliminate gender and wealth disparities and achieving universal and access to quality higher education. So goal number 4 proceeds to goal number 5, which is achieving gender equality and empowering all women and girls. So this goal number 5 is coming from the thematic framework of the Millennium Development Goals, because there were still aspects of gender equality in the Millennium Development Goals. So the Millennium Development Goals did indeed make significant strides in achieving some level of gender equality amongst communities, because my communities in underdeveloped countries were experiencing challenging cultural values that put women in disadvantaged positions. So ending all discrimination against women and girls is not only a basic right, it is crucial for sustainable future. It's proven that empowering women and girls help economic growth and development. So the reason that we focus on women and girls in promoting economic growth is because they've made an assessment. Nyamata ndi nsikana kapena amayi ndi abambo kukhala ndi ndalama yofanana. Plan imene amakhala nayo mzimayi ndi mzibambo, most of the time mzimayi amakhala ndi plan yothandiza like a community or a family, right? Azibambo amangoganiza mwina chinthu chaching'ono. Eya ngati 10,000 angoganiza kuti ndikagula kesi ya mowa, right? Akakhala ndoti budget yabakhomo zinthu mwina mawa tidya chani koma ndalama inalitiyo yomweyo. So this is true when you are looking at how women do indeed transform the development of a country, because they look at the benefits that are good for the entire community as opposed to a small amount of people. So today there are more women in public offices than ever before, but encouraging more women leaders will help achieve greater gender equality. So goal number 5 is experiencing challenges. Yes, we are advocating for gender equality, and the assumption is to say that more women leaders will achieve greater gender equality because women are going to advocate for fellow women. But the reality, most of the times, particularly in African countries, as mind amena amabangana hinda ukauka. Yes. So you'd find ngati nzimayi ali pa top position kuti angapange ku advocate kuti azinsake so akhale in the same very good positions. Most of the times they are the ones who are the hindrances. So even although this boy is still trying to assist that women advocate for one another, it's coming from the cultural perspective of ineyo ndikhale wapamwamba, right? So a lot of African countries are still experiencing issues in achieving gender equality because women are not really supporting themselves. And goal number 6 is ensure availability and sustainable management of water and sanitation. We have talked a lot about how environmental challenges affecting the water. So it is up to international action to address these issues of water and sanitation. So it has been projected that by the year 2035, at least 35% of people will be living in high stress water areas. So high stress water areas. So, yes, yeah. So ngati mmene ukhale apanopa tomorrow there's access madzi amathobwera bwinobwino. By 2030 what is projecting is there's higher temperatures. So ngati panopa mukaona the water bodies are long, right? Madzi aja aphwera kale, but it's only September. Kumafika nanga October nthawi zoti madzi aja kulibe. So by 2035 zoti mama amene anthu they thought that water wasn't a problem, it will become more problem. And the areas where madzi aja mavuta, it means vuto ijaisatan lizapitirira so kwambiri. So we have to address these issues of water and sanitation because we rely on water on a lot of human beings are 90% water. So I heard 70. Somewhere someone said it's 90%, but hey, it's 75%. So water scarcity affects more than 40% of people, and it's an alarming figure. However, it is projected that the rising temperatures will make it even worse. So safe and affordable drinking water for all by the year 2030 which requires an investment in adequate infrastructure, providing sanitation facilities, encouraging hygiene, protecting and restoring water-related ecosystems is essential. So there are a lot of projects that are looking at improving access to water and ensuring kuti developmental projects asabange disrupt the water ecosystem. And goal number 7 is ensuring access to affordable, reliable, and sustainable modern energy for all. So goal number 7 is titled Affordable and Clean Energy. So between 2000 and 2018, the number of people with electricity increased by 78 to 90%, and the number without electricity dipped by 79%. So to achieve SDG number 7 by 2030, it is required to expand infrastructure, upgrade technology to provide clean and more efficient energy in all countries, will encourage growth and help the environment. So when you're looking at SDG number 7, underdeveloped countries, they still rely, or we still rely on energy for us to increase our productivity, right? It affects the economic activity and also affects poverty. For example, ntainake magesa mavuta. Let's say wewe ndi business yokuti umamita anthu, right? It means ndichoncho mababa shop anavutika nthawi imeneyi, right? Including anthu amene amapanga business yoti amaoda kapena akuchigayo, even anthu amene amaoda ndiwe kuti amagwisa ndiwo, magesa amapeza kuti akuzima, ndiwo zija zimayenera zisungidwe fridge. It was affecting economic activity. Yeah, I remember that time. Magesi muna 2 days. Yeah. So it affects people, including my industries. I mean, Abanga produce cartoon, right? They rely on electricity. So it only doesn't just look at individuals using the electricity, but also how it affects the economy. The second factor is that as much as the sustainable development goals advocate for clean energy, the reality is under developed countries, we can't afford achina solar, achina wind, because a household kuti abange install solar, or even kampa, mwina ngati kunoko, kuti abange install solar, it's going to cost a lot more money than ukungokhala ndi line ya school. Right? So in underdeveloped countries, it's something that is very far-fetched, and that is the reason why there are a lot of projects that are coming in now to sort of assist, or we can say subsidize, the cost of investing in solar. There is now going to be a project, solar farm. There's a project that's coming in for that. That way it has sort of subsidizes the cost of solar energy in Malawi. And goal number 8 is promoting sustained, inclusive, and sustainable economic growth, full and productive employment, and decent work for all. And to timadali and chito. And the important factor about working is not just working to earn, but having a decent working environment. This SDG advocates that economic growth can only occur if people are working in very good working conditions. So it looks at the elements such as the working environment, which is, for example, the buildings, availability of sanitation, good management, and also looking at the pay as in regards to the education or the skills that that individual has. Because in order for a country to be driven towards higher inclusivity and economic growth, it means people are able to earn enough money and can afford the goods and services that are available on the market. So the SDG promotes sustainable economic growth, higher level of productivity, and technological innovation. So encouraging entrepreneurship, job creation are key to this. So it is very important to look at the aspect of entrepreneurship, because anthu akakhota atsegula makampani amatha kulemba ntchito anzawo, kapena amatha kulemba ntchito anthu kuti alibe kuthekera kuti atsegula kampani. And therefore, this SDG also promotes homegrown creativity, because anthu amene they have spent their entire life in a particular country, they know my problems and my challenges, and therefore they're able to come up with better innovations to address these challenges, as opposed to just receiving from other developmental practices. And also, with this target in mind, the goal is to achieve full productive employment, decent work for all women, men by 2030. And that also includes my pension scheme, right? And other social insurance services. That is the reason why boma linapereka minimum payment, right? And also not alisa amene amagwira ntchito amenora azipatsidwa pension, because they know retirement ngati 60, if the person lives up to 85, at least azipitirabe moyo wake kukhala bwinobwino. And other social insurance. Goal number 9 is build resilient infrastructure, promote inclusive and sustainable industrialization, and foster innovation. This is something that Malawi 2063 is focusing on, promoting industry and innovation as well as infrastructure. So that is investing in infrastructure and innovation are crucial drivers to economic growth and development. So promoting sustainable industries, like for example, mega farms, how sustainable are they in promoting sustainable industrialization, promoting sustainable industries, investing in scientific research and innovation. So this is very important when you are looking at innovation as well, because in a lot of industries, research is what drives success or outcomes in that particular discipline. So research and development is very important in this, because every industry and discipline must engage in its own research to address the problems that are identified and can be more productive in the long run. So this is also important as a way to facilitate sustainable development. So more than 4 billion people still do not have access to internet. 90% are from developing countries. So bridging this digital divide is crucial to ensure equal access to information, knowledge, as well as foster innovation and entrepreneurship. My government universities will free internet. You know that, eh? Yeah, so it was Project Aboma to sort of assist people to have access to internet, because that's how they gain new information and knowledge, and also it fosters innovation. So yeah, so it means kuti anthu ajama madziwa chinthu choti ndicha project it's free aliyense okay, so bandwidth it means aliyense wapanga kuvai bandwidth ija basi, and some people can't use it. So of course they sort of tried, but then the reality is anthu ndambiri as opposed to the facility that has been provided for. Komanso pena mwina akhoza kukhuta anthu ena anadyako ndalama, ife anthu zimene zitatu analandira ndalama zambiri anapanga install, mwina anadyakonso ndalama upeza kuti ndalama zimene anampasa service provider ndi zimene analemba pa proposal zotani zosiyana. So you know kumalawi kunoko ndi choncho basi. Goal number 10 is reduced inequalities within and among countries. So goal number 10 is very important when you are looking at sustainable development, because while the Millennium Development Goals focus on improving development in underdeveloped countries and developing countries, reducing inequalities as a premise of sustainable development goals has the target of ensuring that there is a reduced gap in inequalities. So tisamaito kanga ku Africa kunoko dziko lolemera zitoonekera patali dziko ija lolemera ukundi wanthu osauka kwambiri, right? And also ngati muli m'Malawi munomu samachita kuonekera tunena kuti anthu olemera kwambiri ndi awo, anthu osaukitsika kwambiri ndi awo. So it's reducing these inequalities that are there. The rise with inequalities because the richest 10% have up to 40% of the global income. When you're looking at that, the ratio is very displaced. Whereas the poorest 10% earn only 2 to 7% of the entire world's income. It means kuti anthu amene osauka ndalama zimene amakhala nawo in terms of global income za chepesesa kwambiri. So these widening disparities require sound policies to empower low-income earners and promote economic inclusions for all regardless of sex, race, and ethnicity. From a global perspective, sex is a factor that determines how much people earn, right? Of course, generally, salary structure it's written, so it doesn't matter whether you're a man or a woman, you are probably going to receive according to grade minimum, right? However, in other countries, they sort of consider men to be getting more money in the same job. And also, we know about race. From the international community, and the Chinese, or maybe because they are white, it also determines how much money they get paid, as well as ethnicity. And through this, you find that there are a lot of inequalities between sex and race. In the US, it is very apparent for people to know the differences between Black people, Chinese, to know the difference between Asian and also white. Where, and Hamina Zungu, and they've been part of that country for a long time, Zima Yuda on Insiradu, they are favored because of their system. So income inequality requires a global solution. This involves improving the regulation and monitoring of financial markets and institutions, encouraging development assistance to foreign direct investment to regions where the need is the greatest. So a lot of African countries receive the FDI because it is applied by the international community to sort of assist the inequalities that are there between rich and poor countries. However, this concept of foreign direct investment is far-fetched because there are still those global inequalities between rich countries and poor people. So as you know, when you are looking at the world system works, amene akuyendesa dziko loselilo ndi anthu mwina ake 12 ena ake amene amangopanga, the decisions about the entire world. So even although there is these policies or changing policies to reduce the inequalities, it's still not being effective because there are only a handful of people that are running the whole global economy. And goal number 11 is make cities and human settlements inclusive, safe, resilient, and sustainable. So this is sustainable cities and communities. So more than half of us live in cities, and by 2050, 2/3 of all humanity, which is 6.5 billion, will be in the urban areas. So sustainable development cannot be achieved without significantly transforming the way we build and manage our urban spaces. So this sustainable cities looks at how development is taking into regard the urban fringe and also those towns that are closest to the high industrialized cities. So in order for us to prevent this migration to the urban areas, development have to take into regard capitalizing on the strength of particular districts. Dedzaija ipange develop samafike size yote anthu amabwera kulongo kuno kuzawo, right? So people don't have to come to Lilongwe kuzawo Katundu. In creating sustainable cities is creating basic resources that a city can depend on itself and also the communities, that prevents them from moving to the urban areas. So making cities sustainable means creating career and business opportunities, safe and affordable housing, building resilient societies and economies. It involves investment in public transport, creating green public spaces, improving urban planning, and managing of participatory and inclusive ways. Because communities can only be sustainable when there is participation of the community people and also there is inclusivity of all members of the community. Goal number 8 is responsible consumption and production patterns. So achieving economic growth and sustainable development requires urgent reduction of ecological footprint by changing the ways we produce and consume goods and services. So in one of the lessons that we learned back, I said that the United States composes of 5% of the entire population, but it consumes more than 35% of all goods and services produced around the world. So when you're looking at this consumption, is it balanced in terms of consumption and production and the population that is there? Responsible consumption means people have to consume only the things that they need and not just luxury consumption. And also, countries have to produce only the things that is sufficient for their population as opposed to overproduction. So this reduces waste and creates favorable opportunities for the natural resources to replenish itself. And the way we dispose waste and pollutants are a target to achieving these goals. The responsible consumption and production is what reduces the toxic waste and the pollutants. So encouraging industries, businesses, and consumers to recycle and reduce waste is equally important. So it's not just the households, but also the industries. If we're not, they are the ones who are producing a lot of goods and services, and there are a lot of byproducts. What mechanisms can be employed to ensure that industries and businesses do indeed have better recycling mechanisms and also reduce the waste that they expel? So a large share of the world population is still consuming far too little to meet even their basic resources. So this goal takes into account that, as at the other end we have the United States that consumes 35%. On the other hand, we have individuals that are able to consume even enough basic resources. So having this per capita of global food waste as a retailer and consumer levels is also important for creating more sufficient production and supply chains. This can help with food security, shift us towards more resource efficient economy. And goal number 13, take urgent action to combat climate change and its impacts. So goal number 1 through 12, some of it includes some goals of the Millennium Development Goals. But as I said, the Sustainable Development Goals, while they were looking at international cooperation, addressing the irregularities between development, they also wanted to focus on the effects of climate change, hence the sustainable development. So, noting the agreements made by the United Nations Framework Convention for Climate Change, which we discussed in lesson 4, there is no country that is not experiencing drastic effects of climate change. So prior to 1992 and somewhere around 2000, many countries had not understood the effects of climate change. But moving forward, countries had accepted that indeed they were experiencing changes or effects of climate change. So the greenhouse gas emissions were more than 50% higher than in 1990. And supporting vulnerable regions would directly contribute not only to Goal 13, but also other sustainable development goals. The effects of climate change that we have discussed previously, looking at some of the global challenges in climate change, we know that it is the poorer countries that have who are hit the hardest. For example, the cyclones, the hurricanes, extreme drought. It is the poor countries because it's hard for them to be resilient because they don't have resources to manage many of those challenges. So this action must also go hand in hand with efforts to integrate disaster risk, sustainable natural resource management, human security, international development, and it is possible with strong political will, increased investment, and using existing technologies. So this goal takes into account that there are some countries that have got the technological upper hand, and therefore they must invest and capitalize with that and assist other countries that are lagging behind, and also primarily political will, because it is the political authority that ensures that, for example, the businesses, the industries are taking seriously the effects or the pollution mechanisms that affect or promote climate change. So this also includes a decrease in global mean temperatures above the pre-industrialized level of aiming at 1.5. But this requires urgent and ambitious collective action. So we are saying that this goal focuses on reducing the global temperature and reducing that. We know that the global temperature is still going to rise, but we should reduce it at least by 1 degree Celsius. Because if they project it to where we are going to be in, let's say, 2050, it has been projected that the global temperatures are going to rise excessively if climate action is not done now. Goal number 14, conserve and sustainably use oceans, seas, marine resources for sustainable development. So life below water is goal number 14. It looks at how the oceans and the seas are very important for the earth to be habitable to mankind. So this includes maintaining the oceans and the seas temperature, the chemistry, the current life that is a driver to the earth's system. So the SDGs aim to sustainably manage and protect marine and coastal ecosystem from pollution, as well as addressing the impact of ocean acidification. So there's a lot of mechanisms in terms of international action or international law across countries that are in the coastal regions. So all countries that are in the coastal region are bound by the international law to take care of their coastal regions, because what happens in one coast is going to affect the other. So reduction in pollution and reduction in expelling of waste in the ocean areas. And goal number 15 is protect and restore, promote sustainable use of territorial ecosystem, sustainably manage forest, combat desertification, reverse land degradation, and biodiversity loss. So this is life on land. So human life depends on the earth as much as the ocean for sustenance and livelihood. So while 15% of land is protected, biodiversity is still at risk. Nearly 7,000 species of animals and plants have been illegally traded. So wildlife trafficking not only erodes biodiversity, but creates insecurity, fuels conflict, and feeds corruption. So urgent action must be taken to reduce the loss of natural habitats and biodiversity. So looking at the effects of combating desertification, which affects again climate change, and also land degradation. Malo ngati they are going to continuously be degraded. It means it's going to affect goal number 2, right? Which is reducing hunger. Because if we're saying that we are going to try to reduce hunger by improving agricultural productivity, that can only be done if the land is still maintaining a lot of its integrity, and also managing sustainably the resources. So unfortunately, in a lot of African countries, there's the problem of corruption that feeds some of these policies that have been made internationally to address, we can say, natural use management. For example, there's a policy where ntainake boma limatseka nyanja kuti people shouldn't fish anymore, and there are also some policies that sort of assist kuti anthu asamadule kwambiri mitengo, but then unfortunately with corruption mapeza kuti aforest omwe aja ndamene akulandira bribery, so it affects the policy implementation. And furthermore, anthu akumudzi aja they don't participate in most of it. Farmers amayambisa runda anthu omwe aja, right? Akalandalanda makala aja zimapita ku office kwawo kuja iwo aja samakagulisa makala. So the lack of reinforcement is what affects these policies to sort of be streamlined. Goal number 16, promote peaceful and inclusive societies for sustainable development. So peaceful and inclusive societies include those that provide access to justice for all and strong institutions. We cannot hope for sustainable development without peace, stability, human rights, and effective governance based on rule of law. So we look at how peace and justice is important. Countries like Sudan, Somalia, they experience a lot of conflict. Kumakhala nkhondo always. Or Israel, Palestine, they experience a lot of war. How is it going to achieve development when they are constantly in war? Ndama zonse zimapita ku nkhondo, they don't look at health services, they don't look at education. Mwina kuti upite poti sinapite wait, koma kuti upite ko dziko ngati meja, even nthawi kuti anthu angapite ku school, they can't have it. They are afraid of conflict and so on. So a country lacks a lot of development because of these prospects of peace and justice. So some regions enjoy peace and security and prosperity, while others fall on the extreme end where there's a cycle of conflict and violence. Those are very good examples of those countries. And this is not inevitable, but must be addressed. So we are saying that conflict is inevitable because pamafika pajaponoti aliyeseza mungwana, and the only mechanism that they can look at is right? But we can address these issues of conflict. Kuti zisafike pokuti ngati ili nkhondoyo isafike mpaka dzaka 4-5. Kapena, let's not go beyond conflict of one week, for example, because we are looking at the destruction that occurs because of conflict. So the SDGs aim to significantly reduce all forms of violence and work with governments and communities to end conflict and insecurities. So that's promoting rule of law, human rights. A key to this process is reducing the flow of illicit arms, strengthening the participation of developing countries in the institutions of global governance. So within the institutions of global governance, the participation is through allowing these developing countries to be part of the mechanism to assist countries adhere countries deal with conflict that occurs and address inequalities that are primarily the cause of the conflict. Most of the times, many of these East African countries that are experiencing war, in Macau, notice is that fight of the resources that are available in the country and dissatisfaction over the leaders that are there. And finally, goal number 17. So goal number 17 is strengthen the means of implementation and revitalize the global partnership for sustainable development partnership for goals. So this is sustainable development partnership for goals. The SDGs can only be realized with strong global partnership and cooperation, which includes foreign or official development assistance. However, while the Partnership for Sustainable Development goals is to promote official development assistance, the challenge with this is that a lot of countries are experiencing conflict and natural disasters. So the moment wachitika cyclone, kuli hurricane, dramas many they had planned for official direct assistance in developing countries, maina kuti zipite to assist humanitarian aid. So you know that right now there's a lot of buzz in humanitarian aid, disaster risk management, right? Because a lot of countries are experiencing problems with natural disasters. So the demand for the money to put into development is going to resources and aid for humanitarian purposes. So many countries also require official development assistance to encourage growth and trade. The aim of this goal is to enhance North-South as well as South-South cooperation by supporting national plans to achieve all the targets, which includes promoting international trade, helping developing countries increase their exports in all parts, and achieving universal rule-based, equitable trading system that is fair, open, and beneficial to all. So this sustainable goal particularly doesn't just look at the partnership between countries and promoting of official development assistance, which is ODA, but also assisting countries regionally to sort of promote each other's trade. For example, Malawi is in a trade system with SADC, right? So it assists kuti region yathu pakahenga kuti there's a compensation in tax. Katundu amene amapangidwa ku Tanzania, ku South Africa, amapangidwa ka even ku Zambia, akamabwera kunoko samaine apange attract msonkho waukulu. Okay? Because that's how it's going to assist that countries develop each other and promoting trade. So these are the 17 sustainable development goals. So the note that I can have here is that you should be able to look at how an outcome of one affects the other, right? So obviously, goal number 17 is applicable to all the 16 goals, right? But we said, as an example, I said that goal number 1 is also applicable, its outcomes are applicable to goal number 3. So there's an interaction between the goals in terms of outcomes that affect the other. So next, I will be introducing leadership for sustainable development. No, I'm just going to introduce it. Okay, and then after mid-semester, we're going to continue. If you excuse me. I think you can pause. Please. Okay, so that's leadership for sustainable development. The various social issues that accompany economic development pose new challenges for leadership to integrate economic benefits, sustainable responsibility, and social and environmental protection. So we are looking at leadership for sustainable development because we have primarily focused on the fact that the development premise that we are in looks at sustainably developing a country. So we can only get there if from the smallest unit, which is the industries and the businesses, taking into regard the prospects of sustainable development. So how do we achieve this sustainable development? So in the context, various new leadership styles have emerged. Among them, sustainable leadership reveals the key role of leaders in balancing the triple goals of the economy, society, and the environment, and has become an important part of leadership theory. So the concept of sustainable leadership is that it increases the social and environmental problems arising from economic development. Leaders should then, through sustainable leadership, understand that they they also participate in what is occurring in terms of climate change because of their economic prospects, in terms of improving their economic productivity. So there's a serious imbalance between economic benefits, social responsibility, and environmental protection in a process of enterprise operation. Um, a lot of countries, as well as a lot of multinational corporations, have been scrutinized or criticized for their inability to look at the social responsibility of the products that they make. A very good example would be makampani amwe abanga ma products okuti they go internationally. For example, abanga ma pampers, they make mwina mafuta achina Colgate awakuti they are found in every country. What is their social responsibility to ensure that particularly developing countries are addressing the effects of waste disposal? So some countries have engaged these multinational companies to sort of pay a level of tax for those of their products to come in that country. So the reason is, for example, Mabamba, what mechanisms have been employed to assist my developing countries in proper disposal of those products, right? Chubu cha Colgate chija chimene chijacho ngati sichochedwa pamene chatayidwa apo ndo chimakhala mimbo mpaka cha kalekale, right? So if you've seen a lot of products such as maybe lotions and tube based, pamakhala either a blue or a green strip at the end there. I don't know if you've noticed. Yeah. So what do you think that means? Kabena, do you know what that means? Okay, so the green strip represents it takes 10 years to be biodegradable. Okay, and the blue strip represents, and also it takes 10 years to be biodegradable, and a lot of composition of that product in Macau they are naturally occurring, all right, or naturally based. And the blue strip represents that it takes longer. Maybe it can take even up to 50 years for it to biodegrade, and also a lot of components of that particular product are chemically based. Okay, so when you're looking at this, it means, Guti, what is the social responsibility of uh, those leaders within those companies that address how their products affect people? So it's not just looking at the environmental protection of various products, but also how the various products affect individuals worldwide. So how to overcome these imbalances is achieve the goal of improving performance, resilience, and sustainability has become a focus of topic in common concern in practical and theoretical circles. So in order to take better into account wide range of stakeholders, leadership need to establish the concept of sustainable development embedded into organization, implement sustainable leadership behavior as the leader in the key of enterprise transformation. So in order for sustainable leadership, it looks into three perspectives: the sustainable leader, the individual, and also the interlevel interaction between a particular organization. So to conclude here, what you should bear in mind according to this lesson is that there is an interaction that occurs, or we can say a an influence that leaders have on their employees as well as those that work for the organization, and there's an interlevel interaction that occurs. So the first is to say leaders have to develop a certain characteristic that influences their employees to promote sustainable mechanisms within the company. And also from an individual level, normally individuals within the company are more susceptible to accepting the activities of the organization if their leader exhibits characteristics that are favorable. So that is to say, normally, and nobody likes their boss, eh? Eh? Hmm? Nobody likes their boss, eh? Why? Okay. Okay, yeah, that's true. But it also depends on so we are saying that in an individual level, in terms of sustainable leadership, what characteristic is present that will influence you as an individual to take into account those considerations of the leader. So those considerations can only be made if you, from the individual level, you we can say have some sort of a relationship with the leader. So it means in sustainable development, that leader has to be inspiring to influence individual action outside of the workplace. Okay, and from an intersection level, would say that companies sort of learn from one another. So the responsibility in terms of environmental and social responsibility that is present in a particular company is going to influence the environmental responsibility in another. For example, if it's competitive companies or it is sister companies. The example there would say, if one company that is making, we can say, a lotion is advocating putting my products out, they are naturally carrying, they don't cause environmental harm, they don't cause harm to their customers, and then they highlight kuti mukazao na lotion kapena alindi component kapena chemical yakuti yakuti, right? Musamagule because it causes this problem. Okay, and then you have not thought about it. You go and read the ingredients, and then you see that particular product. Immediately, it's going to cause you to say, this is done. So it's individuals are going to be influenced to sort of boycott that particular product. So with that large campaign in sustainable environmental issues as well as social responsibility, it's going to trigger another company to invest in more sustainable products and also engage in ensuring that its products are sustainable as well as good for their consumers. So in the next lesson, we'll be taking up from the concept of sustainable leadership. Okay, so on the note of sustainable development goals, take note that in explaining it, you should be ndaiwale. I'm not really sure, because sometimes you would have a list of the questions that you have formed, and then timapanga moderate ma lectures osiyana, so pena mafusena matojo up. Okay. Yeah, so in terms of sustainable development goals, you should be able to explain the goal, what it's about, and also you should be able to explain how it addresses that particular problem. That's how you're supposed to describe what the goal is. Okay, and after doing that, you should be able to give an example of what challenge does that goal address. For example, if we say zero hunger, right? Your example would be the African countries have experienced, a lot of famine and so on. But increasing productivity and economic growth and increasing productivity addresses the issues of hunger. Having explained the hunger, if it's being addressed, what mechanisms is the goal? Yeah. Yeah. Okay. Okay, so what did Jani in a lesson, Jani? So module 2 looked at society and environment. So that was the interaction. So that's the interaction between human activity and the environment. Yeah, so you should be able to know the key components of that interaction, well as explain and know what the diagrammatic representation is about. And The perspectives on human environment interaction, we talked about theories, right? There was a theory of determinism, environmentalism, and possibilism that looks at how environmental interaction occurs. So in this perspective, it means you should be able to differentiate these theories, right? Having explained what the theory is about, you should be able to differentiate what it entails in terms of environmental interaction. So module 2, if you noticed on the group, ndinabereka module 2 as a PPT and module 2 as a Word document, right? For better reference, I would urge you to read the Word document as opposed to the PPT, because the Word document has got further explanations as opposed to the PPT. Yeah. Um, okay. On the primitive models, you should focus on the interaction between the behavior change model and the theory of environmental responsible behavior. So it is just the interaction between these two and how it might behavior. Okay, so the primitive models we said is behavior change model 1 and then the theory of environmental responsible behavior. So in my explanation in the previous lesson, I was saying model meaning it's what it carries over to the rest of the other models. So the 7 models, it's coming from theory of environmental responsible behavior and behavior change models. So you should be able to explain this theory, these theories in regards to how they are related to the rest, right? So what I'm driving at here is if you were to explain any other model, you should know what my model, I mean, they're coming from the information from the theory of environmental responsible behavior and behavior change model. Okay, that's what I explained when I was teaching. That's where the rest of the models are coming from. Okay, and okay, I think that's I think that's the rest. Yeah. Okay. Yeah.